So we've got to figure out how to draw with a little bit more accuracy. And you know what? No matter how bad yours looks, look, it's probably nowhere near this bad, right? So no one did that bad. As long as you didn't do that bad, you're doing okay. The fact is, though, that this is not acceptable. It's just way too sloppy. So we want to talk about how can we draw some things with precision, right? So I'm going to make believe this never happened, which means I'm going to select everything and hit enter and get rid of it with the erase command. And the key to being able to draw things with precision is to know how to use the AutoCAD tools correctly. So now down on your status bar, we have one tool turned on. The tool is called grid mode, right? And that lets us see the grid. Now there's a tool right next to it. This tool is called snap mode, and I'm going to turn it on. And now nothing really happens on the screen until you click on a drawing tool. And now check it out. Look what is happening with my cursor on the screen as I have that button turned on. You see what's happening? The cursor's jumping around. So what this is going to let me do is it's going to let me use the grid to be accurate. So let's try that. But before we do, let's go in and go to the settings for snap. So on the right side, here is our grid settings. Here are our snap settings. The snap settings are set to 1/2 inch. We're going to change that to 0.25. Then hit tab. That'll give us equal X and Y spacing. And then hit OK. And now here's what we should see when we start working. We can jump around and we will land exactly at the intersection of the lines on the grid. And now we will go exactly straight and we will stop and start exactly where we want to. So I'm going to go 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inches and give a click. And I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches and give a click. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to go down and I'm going to create my outside rectangle 5 by 5. And here's what I see. It started exactly on the grid and my lines started and stopped exactly on top of each other. There's no gap, there's no overshot. It's absolutely perfect. Now there's a tool that we can use called measure. It's going to be up on your panel here. And if you go to the utility panel and you click on measure and you put the cursor inside that box, it'll show you it is 5.00 by 5.00. It'll show you also that the corners are perfectly 90° to each other. Right, so that measure tool is kind of handy. It shows you how big things are while you're working on them. I'm going to go back to the line tool, and now I'm going to go in 1/2 inch or 2 squares. I'm going to give a click. I'm going to go up 4 inches. I'm going to go over 4 inches. I'm going to go down 4 inches. I'm going to go back 4 inches. And again, it started and it stopped exactly on the corner. No gap, no overshot. Perfect. I'm going to draw my lines now diagonally from that corner down to this corner and from this corner here down to that corner. Right, and I've created my 2 diagonal lines. And then for the last part of this, I'm going to click on center radius. I'm going to move my cursor to the exact center, the intersection of the lines on the grid, and I'm going to pull it up straight until I get here. I'm going to click, and then voila, perfect. You've completed the shape. It's absolutely perfect. If you click on your measure tool again and stick it in between the 2 outside lines, it tells you there's 1/2 inch between those 2 outside lines. So you have perfect 45° angles. And so one way to figure out how big things are while you're working is to use the measuring tool. Another way, and some people like this more, is to add a dimension to the drawing just to check its size. So here's the tool that adds dimensions. I'll give it a click. And then as you click on a object and pull away, it will tell you how big it is. So I'll click on that line and I'll I'll pull to the right and it says that's 5. And I'll click on the top line and it says that's 5. And then I'll click on this line and this line and it'll tell me, hey, you got a 1/2 inch in between the two lines. And then last but not least, I'll click on the circle and it says, hey, that is a diameter of 4. Right, so I just verified that everything I drew is the exact correct size to the nearest 10,000th of an inch. Right, the gap is exactly perfect, the circle is perfect. If we zoom in, we see everything is intersecting perfectly. We see the circle is touching the other line perfectly. No gaps, no worries, everything looks super duper. All right. Now, it's important that you identify who you are on the drawing so we know who made it. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add a little piece of text. If you click on the text tool, you'll see a little ABC appears next to the cursor. What you're going to do is you're going to click and then drag to the right, and that makes a box. And now you can start typing. So what you want to start typing is type your name, and then hit close up on the ribbon, and then there's your name. Text has a grip, just like lines and circles and arcs and splines do. The grip allows you to reposition things, to move them around, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to save this thing, right? Because that was a lot of effort, but hey, it looks good. You made a good looking drawing. If you turn off the grid, turn off the snap, we see what it's going to look like when it prints out. And then we can talk about how do you take your drawing and print it out on a printer. So to create a hard copy of your drawing, we probably want to save first. So let's hit save. And when it says, what do you want to save this as? You remember where you're saving your work? Go to your flash drive or your documents, or if you're on campus, onto your H drive. Go into your B12 folder. And in your B12 folder, go to the assignment folder. Here's your first real assignment. And then what we want to do is we want to be real specific about the name we give this thing. Okay, so this is again part of working with CAD and part of file management is naming things the correct name. If you name things random names, it will be hard later on to find them when you need them. And if you work with other people and you all have different systems for naming things, again, it's going to be impossible to work together efficiently because no one will know what the file is called that they're looking for. So we're going to call this B12 because this is the B12 class. And we're going to call this drawing 9A dash. And we're going to call this, last two numbers after the dash will be your initials. So my name is Darren Willis. My initials are DW. So B12 is the class name. It's week 9. A means it's the first drawing that we've done this week. That's an assignment. And DW is the initials. And this is going to be very important for your instructor if they want you to upload the file or send them the file, because they need to know who made the file, right? And if they all have different weird names, it'll be hard for them to organize and go through and grade. So hit save. What we should see at the top is where it's saved and what it's called. That looks pretty good.